Hola estudiantes, este es el video final de la serie de mandatos formales. Este video está titulado Mandatos formales, Negatives and Pronoun Placement. Forming the negative command is super easy, just like it has been this whole time. Just put a no in front of the affirmative command, whatever weird thing that turned out to be, with the irregular ones. So I will now give you some usted examples, singular. For example, venir, the affirmative command is venga. You should say no venga, don't come. For pedir, the affirmative command is pida. You will say no pida, don't ask. Comer, the affirmative command is coma. You want to say no coma, don't eat. Here are some ustedes examples. For bailar, the ustedes command is bailen. You want to say no bailen, which means don't dance. Decir, the affirmative command is digan. You want to say no digan, don't say. Last example, empezar. The affirmative command is empiecen. You want to say no empiecen, don't start. Okay, so there are 3 different kinds of pronouns that you may have to deal with when you are commanding other people. For example, there are direct object pronouns, which are lo, la, los, and las. Reflexive pronouns, which are me, te, se, nos, and se. And indirect object pronouns, which are me, te, le, nos, and les. The question for you will be, where do the pronouns go? First, we're going to do a quick review of each kind of each kind of pronoun and what exactly it does in the sentence, and then we'll talk about how it relates to the commands. Alright, direct object pronouns are the pronouns that take the place of whatever is receiving the action in the sentence. Okay, so take a look at the dialogue above. I say, buy a sandwich, which in Spanish would be compré un sándwich. And you say, I already bought it. You say, I already bought it because you don't want to repeat the word sandwich. You don't want to say, I already bought the sandwich. You want to say, I already bought it. So then you would say, yo lo compré. I already bought it. Okay, so the lo in this case is taking the place of the sandwich, basically meaning it. Second conversation, I say, did you find the chairs? ¿Encontraste las sillas? And then you say, yes, I found them. Because you don't want to say, yes, I found the chairs. You want to make it shorter, so you want to say, sí, las encontré. Remember, the direct object pronouns are lo, la, los, and las. You choose the one you're using depending on whether the thing you're replacing is masculine or feminine, singular or plural. So for example, un sándwich is masculine singular, so I went with lo. Las sillas, feminine plural, so I went with las in the second sentence. Okay, here are some direct object pronouns as they relate to the formal commands. If you're making an affirmative command, the pronoun goes on the end of the command. So for example, cómalo, eat it. Léelos, read them. However, if you're making a negative command, the pronoun goes after the no and before the command. So for example, no la traiga, don't bring it. No las hagan, don't do them. Another type of pronoun you may run across is the reflexive pronoun. A reflexive pronoun is the kind that tells you someone is doing an action to himself or herself, or for himself or herself. So, example number 1. Me baño cada día. I bathe myself every day. In this case, me is the reflexive pronoun. ¿Te despiertas a las 8? Do you wake yourself up at 8? In this case, te is the reflexive pronoun. Y número 3. Carla se arregla el pelo. Carla fixes her hair. Se being the reflexive pronoun in this case. So remember that the reflexive pronouns are me, te, se, nos, and also se. Reflexive pronouns with a command. Same deal as before. For an affirmative command, the pronoun will go at the end of the command. So for example, dúchese, take a shower. Póngase la ropa, put on clothes. You'll notice that in both examples, the se came at the end of the command. Negative commands, however, are just like before. The pronoun goes after the no and before the command. For example, no se acuesten tarde. Don't go to bed late. No se cepillen los dientes. Don't brush your teeth. Something no one will ever say to you. You will notice that se, the reflexive pronoun, goes after no and before acuesten or before cepillen. So after no and before the command. The next thing you may run across is the indirect object pronoun. Indirect object pronouns answer the question to whom or for whom the action is being done. This sounds a little bit like reflexive pronouns, but it doesn't always mean the person is doing something for him or herself. It just means that they're telling me who the action is being done for or to. So, example number 1. Él me compró un pastel. He bought me a cake. In this case, me is the indirect object pronoun. He bought the cake for me. Número 2. Voy a buscarte unos libros. I am going to find you some books. In this case, te is the indirect object pronoun, and it means you. So I'm going to find books for who? For you. Número 3. Mi madre les compró un tigre. My mother bought them a tiger. Les is the indirect object pronoun, meaning them. Okay, indirect object pronouns with a formal command, the same as before. For an affirmative command, the pronoun goes on the end of the command. For example, tráigame un lápiz. Bring me a pencil. Me went on the end of traiga, or on the end of the command. Second example, dígale que no. Tell him no. Le, meaning him, went at the end of the command. Negative commands. The pronoun goes after the no and before the command, como siempre. So, example, no me busques. Don't look for me. Don't look for who? Me. Second example, no te mandes una rosa. Don't send yourself a rose, which would be a very pitiful thing to do on Valentine's Day. Te being yourself. Don't send a rose to whom? To yourself. That concludes our series of Mandatos formales. I hope it's been informative for you. And just a heads up, wait until you have both an indirect object pronoun and a direct object pronoun in the same sentence. Thank you, I hope you learned a lot.